Patrick Demarchelier, was he a legend or a predator? The aim of these episodes is to bring you closer to the world of fashion in a more honest, down-to-earth way. No fake fanfare. Sure, the fashion world is complex, filled with hidden social and cultural references, much like art. It is art. But at its core, this world, this industry, is made of people who, just like us, like everyone, they are flawed. Fashion may seem glamorous and exclusive, but people in it share the same passions and make the same mistakes as anyone else. We might have idolized some, there is no reason. Fashion isn't just about designers. The true impact on how we perceive an image comes from those working behind the scenes. But there are many people, there are hairdressers, there are fashion stylists, there are photographers, makeup artists, and many, many more. Today, we will dive into the life and passions of Patrick Demarchelier. Cole Patrick. He's so famous that we didn't even need to think who the legendary Meryl Streep was referring to in The Devil Wears Prada. She of course expected her personal assistant to know it too. When you say in fashion Cole Patrick, you mean Demarchelier. So Patrick Demarchelier was born on August 21st, 1943 in Le Havre, France. He grew up in an ordinary Muggle family. He did not grow up in an artistic house with artsy parents. He did not have access to fashion magazines or any fashion content from an early age as many other photographers. He was just a regular bloke. When he was a child, his parents divorced and he grew up mostly with his mother and his siblings. When he was 17 years old, his mother had remarried a very caring, nice guy who was pretty close to the children. He was the one gifting Patrick his very first camera. It was a Kodak Eastman camera. He started playing around with it, experimenting and learning by just using his Kodak so much, taking pictures of everything he was curious about. He figured out how to change the film of the camera, how light works, lights and shadows, how to develop the pictures, because remember, we are still in the 50s, so the technology is not even remotely close to what it is now. With a couple of USBs and a laptop, you can be a photographer. You needed special chemicals, you needed dark room with LED lights. It was a process, everything was slower. He didn't attend any formal school of photography. He graduated a public school like everyone else in his neighborhood. He was not a special kid, he was not very rich. In a 2003 interview with Vogue, he said, and I quote, "I have no formal qualification, only the school of life. I learned most of my skills simply by taking pictures, loads of pictures. I've made a lot of mistakes, but then often you learn the most from your own mistakes. Being a photographer is like being an athlete. You have to practice every day." This school of life concept brings in my mind a nod of the Nouvelle Vogue from the 60s, but in France. They probably had a different kind of school there. When he turned 20, he moved to the capital, Paris, to find a job and fulfill his dream of becoming a photographer. Paris was quite hospitable for those who wanted to get involved in the arts. He got a job in a photo studio that printed pictures for newspapers. He did not touch a camera at this job, but I imagine the benefit was to be close to the people he wants to work with in the future. It was a great opportunity instead of being a waiter. And the plan worked, actually. He meets a photographer who was famous for film covers. He was working in a magazine similar to Flix or Premiere, and he was working on film covers. He became his assistant, and after gaining some experience, he started taking pictures for books of models in agencies. Fun fact, that's how I started my styling career. He then became an assistant to Hans Führer, a photographer working with Vogue. While working with Hans, he also worked with Grace Coddington during her time in British Vogue. Grace left British Vogue, allegedly, because she didn't like working with Anna Wintour, and they ended up in New York working together for 30 years, but that's for another episode. Demarchelier owes his career to Grace for giving him the opportunity to start working with Vogue. At this point, it's worth telling you something very important. Patrick, he was never a big fan of studying. He did not speak a word of English. Nothing, not at all. Only God knows how him and Grace were working together and they were managing to communicate. Patrick fell in love with a girl who lived in New York. Having already had collaborations coming from America, he thought, okay, I'll become a love expat. It's not that it was a small village in the middle of nowhere, it was New York City. He could make a name for himself there, so he moves to the Big Apple. As he did not speak any English, he worked as a freelancer next to some other French-speaking photographers to help him out. For example, Henri Cartier-Bresson, who is a legend in spontaneous photography and a pioneer of what we now call the street style photography. Let's say he is like the daddy of street style. He worked with others, but I feel like Henri inspired him the most when it comes to his signature style. Demarchelier's photographs are simple, they are clean without strong striking poses. He often loves and chooses the most spontaneous pictures, the most natural and honest version of a model. He calls them a 2-second accident. It's as if these photographs are accidental. We often see his portraits in black and white with interesting angles and different perspectives. This gives a dynamic dimension to his photographs, but the main thing is that Patrick sees the beauty in the faces he captured almost naked, not necessarily without clothes, but somehow exposed. One of his photos that really shook the industry was the one at Vogue with Kate Moss. Kate Moss sits completely natural with no makeup, barefoot, topless, with a pair of jeans on the floor, her legs gather close to her body. Very New York, very American. This pose became Patrick's favorite and signature, as many similar shots of other models and actresses followed. Gradually, he started working with Harper's Bazaar and Vogue, and to the extent that Vogue had 3 Demarchelier covers in different countries at the same time. One in France, one in America, one in Britain, all photographed by him in the same month. Each country can buy the rights to a title of a magazine, and depending on the cover or the issue, they can share a cover or have their own. In the 90s, when fashion magazines were at their peak, Vogue usually would make a cover for each country. He stayed at Condé Nast until the early 90s, when he migrated to the competition. He became a principal photographer at Hearst Corporations, the one that publishes Cosmo and Marie Claire and Esquire, etc. But a 7-figure sum attracted him back to Condé Nast in 2004. Let's go back in time again. We need to go a little bit back. In 1989, the year I was born, it was a very important year in his career because Princess Diana called him to take pictures of her. Patrick had done a shooting for Vogue in which a model opened her coat to show a photo of a small smiling boy hidden in the inside pocket. The boy, in fact, was his son, and Diana, perhaps because of her love of her own boys, loved this photo so much that she contacted him. And that's how he describes the collaboration with Diana started, and then they became friends. She was a funny, good person. She was basically very simple, a simple woman who liked very simple things, he told Telegraph in 2008. The important story here is that up until this point, there was no other non-British person that had photographed the royal family. Patrick Demarchelier is the first royal photographer to do so. He gave us incredible portraits of Diana, some amazing close-up portraits in black and white, some revealing the princess's silhouette. She had an amazing body, Diana. Even slightly more revealing because she's a royalty. With shadows, it looked like a nude portrait. Of course, in the original version, you will see she wears a black pants and a black sleeveless top. It's just how they play with the light, making it look like she's not wearing much. Another huge photo of him that you probably remember is Madonna out in the pool with wet hair and a red lipstick. This was a very commercial picture, but the historical significance, for fashion of course, was there. Anna Wintour. Everyone was saying to Anna, do not put Madonna on the cover. 4 months before that, that was the May issue, so February issue, Vogue UK had Madonna on the cover dressed in traditional Indian clothes. Anna Wintour had a very strong will. This cover was a turning point, as it marked the increasing shift towards featuring celebrities regularly in the cover, a trend that became dominant in the 90s and beyond. It's one of the most iconic Vogue covers of all time. It was beautiful. If you look closely at his work, you will see that in commercial photographs from a magazine, he uses a lot of color. In the concepts and the pictures that he shots for himself or portraits, he prefers black and white. Patrick also had a great talent for nudity. Nudity that is very subtle and very classy. He had a very high standard and a good eye for elegance. So although nudes can look provocative, can look cheap, Patrick had this magic touch. He was always bringing out the most beautiful and pure side of the models. In 2005, he was invited to do the Pirelli Diary. Famous for its nude pictures, also known as the Cal, all photographs who wanted to leave a mark in fashion needed to be in this calendar. The creme de la creme has done an editorial there. Terry Richardson, Anna Leibovitz, Bruce Weber, Karl Lagerfeld, just to name a few. He initially did the 2008 issue, which was so successful that they invited him back in 2014 for the 50-year anniversary of the Pirelli calendar. The themes every year were pretty similar, sexy boys and girls, until a woman came in. 2015, Anne Leibovitz decides to make this issue about successful women, and a gradual and irreversible course of change begins. Year after year, the Cal, always ahead of the time, evaluates new cultural and aesthetic sensibilities. But this probably has to go in another episode. Let me know in the comments if you would like me to do a Cal episode, because I really have not thought this through. Anyway. It is February 18th of 2018. At the Boston Globe Spotlight, more than 50 male and female models spoke about a range of sexual harassments at work, including big names like Coco Roja and Abby Lee. Almost 60% of the people asked stated that they have been touched inappropriately during professional situations, with violations ranging from unwanted kisses to rape. At least 25 photographers, agents, stylists, casting directors, and other industry professionals were mentioned. Alongside with all of them, Patrick Demarchelier. One of Demarchelier's former photography assistants told the Globe that model Cameron Russell's Instagram campaign, #MyJobShouldNotIncludeAbuse, inspired her to write an email to Vogue editor-in-chief Anna Wintour about the relentless attacks Demarchelier made on her, stating that she was 19 and working there as a practice. When she reacted, he said something along the lines of, "You're not cut for this world, you're not tough enough for this job, you won't last, la la la." She also said that later he underestimated her at work, making her feel useless. Demarchelier replied to all these accusations through the journalist because they were dying for a headline and they were putting so much pressure on him. He said that people lie and they like to invent stories, and he implied that people who spoke ill about him did so because they didn't succeed in the industry. After his reply, 6 other women reported Demarchelier's unwanted sexual advances, including incidents such as pushing one model's hands against her genitals and grabbing another model's breasts, as well as making vulgar suggestions. The crazy thing about this is that you have a predator. 7 people have come out and said this person has treated me in this manner, and people got mad at Anna Wintour because she didn't fire him on time. How do we shift the responsibility from the predator to the woman who received an email about a person she works with for 30 years, and it's suddenly Anna Wintour's fault? Most spoke on condition of anonymity, fearing professional repercussions, which is absolutely understandable. The Spotlight report has many equally shocking stories of sexual harassment, revealing once again how pervasive this issue is with the industry and for how long this has been going on. With the Me Too movement, many fashion thrones emptied. From Mario Testino, Terry Richardson, Bruce Wember, and now Demarchelier, these fashion photography legends were all uncovered. These misconduct allegations led to their exclusion from collaborations with Condé Nast, and they lost many jobs and many opportunities. The same thing happened to Patrick not even a month after the news broke. In October 2018, Condé Nast issued a new code of conduct in response to allegations of irregularities in the fashion industry. There are no excuses for this kind of behavior. It's absolutely unacceptable, the statement said. The company expects all employees, freelancers, and others who work with the Condé Nast to act appropriately and with the utmost professional and personal respect for each other when working on behalf of the company or its brands, advertisers, and customers. Nudity or sexually suggestive poses should be agreed in advance, and girls under 18 will always have a parent in the place of the shooting. The Globe reported that some models wanted to expose their rapists, while others called for new legal protections and radical reform in the industry that they say that they left them feeling exploited. And it's true. It is such a shame that we admired the work of these people, and for so many years we did not know what was going on behind closed doors. We learned now that just because someone is good at what he does not define him, that's not his character, no matter how good and how nice they may seem on the first sight or in an interview. When multiple victims report abuse, then it's done, it's over. He should not be near women in this vulnerable setting ever again. The world is full of talented men and women that can create pictures equally good or even better than these 90s masters. Don't get me wrong, this applies to all professions. It's not just fashion. It's lawyers, it's journalists, everyone. No one is irreplaceable. At the end of the day, it's just a job. Artistic or not artistic, it's a job. And people who work in jobs, they deserve to feel safe and respected. On March 31st, 2022, at the age of 78, Patrick Demarchelier died of cancer in St. Bartholomew, a small island next to the Dominican Republic. As a fashion lover, I still remember his most iconic pictures, like the one I mentioned above, and many more, like the Christy Turlington portrait with a black turtleneck, Giselle on the horse for the cover of Vogue, Dior campaigns, Galliano comeback in 2000s, the portrait of RuPaul. I mean, amazing. His legacy in fashion photography is undeniable, but as with many figures in the industry, his career is shadowed by controversy. These discussions are important as they force us to examine the power structures in fashion and the responsibility that come with influence. At its best, fashion photography has the power to inspire, to transform, and to tell stories that stay with us for generations. As the industry continues to evolve, one thing remains clear. The images we create, but the way we create them, really matters. The future of fashion photography isn't just about beauty, but also it's about respect, ethics, kindness, and the kind of industry we want to build for the next generations. Well, thank you for joining me on this journey in the life and work of Patrick Demarchelier. I would strongly urge you to Google some pictures and take inspiration, and let me know in the comments if you can separate the art from the artist and how do you feel about this whole thing. If you like this video, subscribe, share, and comment. Until next time, see ya!